So it's been my experience that long sessions need to last 5 to 7 days. Longer than that, they cease to be fruitful. And the reason, of course, is that we can, being human, we can absorb whatever we absorb for just about that length of time. And after that, we really can't. People speak of 30, 40-day sessions, that sort of thing, 90-day sessions. What they're really doing is sitting 2-3 hours a day, some sort of a loose schedule. Nobody can do this, really, for more than about 6 days. The only 10-day session I ever went to, we were literally walking into things. Now I bring it up because, in a way, you have learned, or you've taken in the material that you can learn for this session. Now you can continue to learn from it until the session's over. But the most important thing as we get near the end is to sort of get that together, so we know a little bit what we've learned and what to do with it when we leave here. And we are always able to learn at any given point what we're able to learn. That sounds, I said something backwards. Anyway, we can't learn things that we have not experienced. So we're taking in a certain amount, turning it into our own experience. And that much always sticks. But more than that does not stick. And so the main thing I want to do is to wrap this up a little bit. It won't be a very good Dharma talk, but I just want to bring up certain points. Even these you will see from where you're at this moment. I see it from where I'm at this moment, you know. We learn according to what we're able to learn at this point, which isn't good or bad, just the way it is. But the 2 points as I talk and talk and talk and listen and listen and listen is 2 points I have gathered is first the tendency of all human beings, and Zen students are worse, to substitute ideas about life and how it should be and how we should be for the reality. That way we cannot experience, and that way we can't learn anything. If we don't get that straight, we climb one of our poles forever, and in some way, shape, or form, it's the feeling that the external world has either hurt me or that I need it, one or the other. Usually they're mixed together in some. That I am at the mercy of what has been done to me, and that I need something, therefore. And I erect an appropriate pole according to my history. And our poles change, but for each person they tend to cluster around certain things. There is no other person, no other event, no other thing. That's what climbing the pole is about, is to find that which can save me, which can make me happy. And to some degree we all do that. Our practice itself is, for many of us, our main pole. And there's a very common misunderstanding even about that as a session comes to a close. We tend to want from a session what has been pleasing to us in the past. We may have had a day when we just felt this was just, this was it. We may have had sittings like that. So we expect that our next session will repeat that pleasure for us. So you remember having had a wonderful dessert, and when you come back to that restaurant, what do you want? You want that dessert. wanting anything, as I've said over and over, and we all do, we all want something. Wanting anything. Wanting a session to be a certain way for us. Wanting it to present us eventually, with something. It's the very reason it won't present anything. So it's hard. Some sessions, and there's just a few of you here having sessions like that, are dismal business. Dry, boring, unrewarding, slamming us back into our poles all the time. They're usually the best. Practice is not about having experiences or specially wonderful sitting states. They occur, and that's fine. But practice is about what becomes of me as a person. Now, very slowly, going through things like this and sitting every day, we begin to straighten out this matter a little bit. So one thing I want to go through, though I have with many of you, but see, it's hard to get, even though I present it, because you want something else, you push it aside. Okay? I want to go through the little exercise I've gone through with so many of you, because it's the most important thing you can take back into your daily life. Many of you have had a lot of therapy background, and you still try to put your practice into a therapy connotation. Therapy is just wonderful, but it won't solve your life for you. It may give you enough steadiness so you can do this practice. That's just fine. The first part is to find out what psychological stage we're playing on at the moment. How is it supposed to be? How is it really? First to the external world. How's my husband supposed to be? How is he really? How am I supposed to be with that? And how am I really? Now, practically all people stop at the second one from the end. How am I supposed to be with this? See? This is my pictures of perfection, of course. I'm supposed to be patient, kind, wise, understanding, particularly Zen students, because they're just impossible when it comes to this one, because they know all the words. You have to know those two sentences, and you have to run them through many times a day. How is it supposed to be? You know? My morning should be something I can manage, something I can do good things with. As a matter of fact, I can't do it, see? I have a headache. I don't feel like doing it. I'm annoyed with the whole business of living anyway. We don't work enough at those last two steps. The first we get pretty well. How's my husband supposed to be? Cooperative, friendly, interested in me, How's he really? Well, he doesn't seem to know I exist this week. And he's grumpy, too. That's not so hard. It's the second part, and we get stuck on the first of those two questions. How am I supposed to be? This is the great error that most churches get into. They don't know they're doing it. They do it from the best of intentions. You're supposed to be a good girl. Honor thy father and thy mother. Don't pull your brother's hair if he's little. Be a good girl. Be as you're supposed to be. And over years we bury how we really are. It's not in itself so important, except it blocks the only thing that matters. The ability to experience. You can't experience an ideal. Well, I should be kind, patient. You can't experience that, see? It's not real. Because I am as I am. This is the clue to shikantaza in traditional terms. I am as I am. And it's experiencing that, which just simply means to feel whatever's there, that is the keys to the kingdom. Now, it sounds so simple, see? But it's just like Sesshin. We don't want to be what we are because it's not pleasant the way we are, see? We don't want to do that. Like Sesshin's supposed to be interesting, nice. Have great things happen. Anyway, it's the second step from the end where we get stuck. How am I supposed to be? I've been sitting 20 years. Well, obviously I don't feel jealous, do I? I've been sitting 20 years. Well, I'm not irritable, am I? Well, I'm not going to show it anyway. I get stuck. I'm going to put out this space to the world, and I'm going to believe it, see? It works until what? What will shatter that in a hurry?
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Not when the pressure gets more than minimal. It doesn't work. Everything begins to go haywire. So if you don't understand that point, you never get to the point of practice. See, people can sit on their cushions like this 20 years. They sit every day. They're nice people. Yeah. They haven't practiced yet. How about that? Now the pain and difficulties and annoyances of sesshin push you closer to experiencing. That's one reason sesshin is so valuable. It shouldn't be too nice, because then you don't get that wonderful experience of being what you are. And beginning to see it, by the way. See, what we get from experiencing doesn't fit my pole, my pictures of how I am and how life is. And the kind of help we get from that experiencing is, because we don't want to know about it, is unimaginable. It's not anything we're used to. It's in another dimension. We can't sit around and think about that, because we live in this dimension of space and time where we have thought after thought after thought after thought after thought, and emotion after emotion after emotion after emotion after emotion. When there's no duality, which is what experiencing is, we can't imagine that. We can't picture it. We can't think about it. Anyway, I just want to say, and you'll forget it, I see people forgetting it right and left, And that's all right. I'll remind you. I don't have some virtues, but I'm very patient. And also not so nice sometimes, because you have to know this. If you don't, you stay clinging to your pole, and that pole, of course, will be clinging to something or some idea in this world that you think will help you. And of course it won't. And one of the functions of life, and session is a little part of that, is to get you to know that nothing works. Nothing works. Your partner's not going to make you happy. Your job's not going to make you happy. All these things can be wonderful, enjoyable, but they're not going to make you satisfied. Better word than happy. Anyway, if you don't know those two sentences, I recommend that you memorize them. If you still don't get them, see me after session. We'll write them out. Okay? You have to be persistent in this game. Persistent, persistent, persistent. Your little pole isn't going to fall over, is it? No. Okay, still have quite a bit of dice on left. We can bring that up. That's item number one. The second, I want to just go after a little bit because, again, it's hard because I'm talking constantly about experiencing, and constantly nobody knows what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about anything that's special. Experiencing is just a natural state of man if you're not blocking that experiencing with what you're holding on to, which is your thinking, your self-centered pictures, ideas. I have to have it. I have to have him. I have to have her. As long as there's any self-centered thinking, you can't truly experience. And that's why it's not the experiencing is anything, but you can't turn to it because you're afraid to turn to it, you see. I have to give up all those ideas for a second. Not for more than that, just a second will do it. You know, we've done this exercise with many of you, but if you just stop thinking for 3 seconds, you're experiencing. You have to be. You have no choice. Nobody's clogged up your ears or your eyes or your sensory organs. If you're not thinking about yourself, you are experiencing. It's not that it feels like something special. But we don't want to do that. I'm talking about the same thing as that step. How am I supposed to be? That's where we want to stay stuck. That's our pole, see? How am I supposed to be? Hardworking, diligent, getting things done, being a nice person. All those things are fine, but not when they're a pole. We don't want to turn away from that, because if I just am not anything, see, that's terrifying, just to experience for a second life as it is. But the word terrifying is just a word. When you actually do it, there's nothing there. It's just a sensation. So we're talking over and over and over about tiny things, and until we get the point of what that is, we don't get the point of our practice. In traditional terms, we can't see what mu is, or we can't do shikantaza. You don't need to use terms like that. You have to get that little point. And it's in the second two of how is it supposed to be. And believe me, when you begin to just let yourself for 1 minute admit who you really are, which is anything, jealous, uncomfortable, bored, frustrated, just admit, yeah, I am those. That's what I am, see? Then you have the freedom. It's like a weight rolling off of you to just experience that. Without that initial honesty, the wonderful gate is closed. Keys to the kingdom in Christianity. The gateless gate in Buddhism. There's always a term for it. See, we think it's something out there. No. It's us. To study Buddhism is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self, to experience. See? There's no self in experiencing. See, Jean was telling me this morning about her years of getting caught and having to be a saint, which just simply means to be absolutely wonderful all the time, in all situations, for all people. See, that's being caught a little bit in that step, having to be the way you think you should be. And that's wearing out for her, which is real nice. See, a true saint is a very earthy person, but for us a saint is the way I'm supposed to be. And we all have a picture of how we're supposed to be. Underneath that is the way I am. And if you never get to that, you can't get to experiencing. And your life will not transform. Real simple, but not easy. So when we get home, you know, the vision is always much clearer in sesshin than it is, you know, when the sink stops up and the kids get sick and you have to be at work and you don't feel good anyway. I've been through that one many, many times. Where's the vision then? See, unless you are careful, it'll go right out the window. Okay? That's why a simple practice is absolutely necessary. Somebody said to me, well, you know, all this psychological stuff's one thing, but what I really want is to see the nature of reality. See? To really sense how everything's put together. Me too. See? You can't see that. You can't see life, obviously, unless you can be it. Life doesn't know anything about ideals. Never heard of them. See? It's when the ideals have completely faded and experiencing your life and coming out of that space is 90-95% that you begin to get these glimmers of what reality is. No big deal. Eh? So this all fits together. You may not see it. And I'm not even interested in that. I'm only interested in that persistent practice. And you have to train yourself to do it on days that aren't too yucky, you know what I mean? As I say, when everything begins going wrong, and it does, unless you have that background, it's too hard. And some of you think even doing that's enough and you want to leave out your daily sitting. Forget it. Daily sitting is a much more subtle and sophisticated version of what we're talking about. It's the base. But we fool ourselves in umpty-ump ways. I'm just throwing this out because you worked very, very hard this week. And And so have I. I don't like to see my work wasted. So if you don't have some approach to the hurly-burly of daily life, it isn't that you lose what you've learned in session, it's always there, but it gets so clouded over you can't use it. And that's, this isn't about whether or not I had such and such an experience on February 8th. It's about how I am as a person. And that's, you have to be practicing all the time for that to be true. Anyway, there have been enormous changes in many of you this session. It's just really wonderful. I think that's just absolutely rewarding for me. But the point is, we're all just babies, you know what I mean? We just have to keep on this path. So how's it supposed to be, folks? How's this afternoon supposed to be, huh? Well, a little less pain. A little easier. How's it going to be? I don't know. It'll be the way it's going to be. Yeah. Anyway, training questions all the time, okay? Okay. That's nice. I give you 10 more minutes of sitting, so we'll... Well, wait, is there any questions? I do want to make sure. Any questions? Yes.
You know, like the fourth step you were talking about, you know, like how am I really?
Uh-huh.
Sometimes if you're working, like say, like I'm working a bit or whatever,
No,
it's really frustrating.
the fourth step is how you really are in an emotional sense. And
Seems like you have to put a cover on that or something at that moment. Like say you're really angry at some, like say the kid.
Well, you have to stop at some point where you can really take a look, see. The longer you've been practicing, you will know that just like that. See? The more years of practice you have under your belt, the more you know you're smiling, you're serene, everything's fine, and yeah, I'm annoyed, see. And it's okay to have your social face. We all need a social face, but you need to know. And that also, just from the attempts to do it, you see, will begin to sharpen. I'm talking about seeing the psychological base that you're living your life out of. Of course it's not real. None of it's real, but we have to see it. Because if you don't see it, you can't experience it. I never said any of this was real. It's not important, but it's important to us when it happens, or we think it is. See, that's our pole. My pole's getting shaken. Yeah, Liz.
This is Good Friday, and it just hit me that these poles we erect are really crosses by which we crucify ourselves. And I wonder if you could say that the difference between step 3 and step 4, you know, when you're, how am I supposed to be, is almost like a false crucifixion, where in the case of my strategy, I might be a noble martyr, and I'm really not suffering. It's like kind of parents.
Well, that could be.
Something like that. And then step 4 would be really hanging on that cross and feeling what's going on inside.
Yeah, that's true. But we don't want to feel what we feel inside. Somebody was saying when she feels what's really going on, she feels nauseous. See, nobody wants to stay with that. Very difficult. But you have to do it. Okay? And it won't stay that way, by the way. The more you experience it, that become less and less and less. Anybody else? I'm just absolutely clear, I hope, to everybody. Yeah.
It's easy for me to get And I'm supposed to be experiencing this all the time. What is that? Can you just take a look at that? I mean, it's like, I found that...
Having a thought, I'm supposed to be experiencing all the time, okay? How would we handle that? What is the truth of the matter, Tolan?
That right now I'm not.
Right, okay, that's the truth. Eh? Right now you're not. Right. You always want to look, what's the truth of what's really going on here, not what my head says. What's the truth? There has to be honesty. If the base isn't that, you never can open that door. That's the problem. Yeah.
I have a question about effort. How does effort tie in with all this? Seems like it's effort.
Effort is the shift in attention that is necessary from moving from my pictures of how I should be to how am I really. See? Yeah. That takes effort until you're so used to it that it's almost automatic. See, the person that's used to experiencing, even as they're putting on their social face, which as I say is absolutely important to do, even as they do that, they sense the body telling them something, you see. They pick up on the body directly all the time. And, so they know what's going on there. And our sensitivity increases markedly in that area over time. Some of you are just beginning to know you have a body, and it takes time. Athletes and dancers don't do any better, by the way. Sometimes they're the furthest out of touch. And Juan, I don't mean you, but anyway, I'm saying that interesting to me that people who are star athletes sometimes totally out of touch with their bodies. Interesting. So, I don't think that answers your question, but I'm getting tired, so let's finish. Okay. I'm getting so I've had enough too, if you want to know.